So it does seem like we've had a lot of these conversations recently, but we're going to have another one because the recent episode of SmackDown is in the books. When it comes to Paul Heyman, well, I'm just putting him in the GOAT box. He is a greatest of all time performer. Because I tell you, clearly building up to the time the Bloodline were finally going to turn on him, he'd let his hair grey up a little bit, like he'd stopped dyeing it. He could see that he wasn't shaving. Apparently, sometimes he won't go to bed for a couple of days, so he even looks more dejected. And then we get to this big Bloodline acknowledgement ceremony, which had so much layering to it. I love a little bit of nuance in my wrestling. It was also very, very funny. This is the kind of dumb wrestling that I do enjoy. Jacob Fatu gets his big entrance, and he acknowledges Solo Sikoa, and so does Tamatonga, and so does Tangaloa. Tangaloa's fun. He was like, yes, I do acknowledge you. Just please keep talking like that. It made me giggle. And when it's time for Paul Heyman to say it, he kind of said it. I'm going to get it wrong now. But he said, I acknowledge that you are not my tribal chief, because basically he is in love with Roman Reigns, which I totally do understand. But then Solo spikes him instantly, which I massively appreciated because it tied into his character. We're not standing in ceremony here, Mr. Wayne. And then they shield powerbombed him through Alan the announce table. I thought it was fantastic. He did it in Madison Square Garden, which was so smart to do it on these back-to-back SmackDowns, because Jacob Fatu got the big old reaction in Chicago, hardcore wrestling crowd. Obviously, MSG is the same. They went nuts when Paul Heyman turned on the Bloodline, essentially, although he was just being honest, to be fair. And they did even bigger reaction when he got chucked through the table. And the fact that we've been able to turn Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns' face, even though he's not on television, I just think is fantastic. And again, where was Cody Rhodes? Where was Randy Orton? Where was Kevin Owens? Where was CM Punk? Well, Punk got taken out by Drew McIntyre last week. And as for our Avengers, they were essentially escorted off the premises by the police, by the cops, because they had started off with a big old brawl with the Bloodline. And Nick Aldis was like, oh man, why are you ruining my life? You all have to go home. So they did. Now, in the past, would I have been massively upset if we hadn't made sure to close that story loop? No. And they could always have run out afterwards. But when you do it like this, and you get the little things right, there's the do-do for the comments, it just makes the story make so much more sense. It allows you to buy into it more, and it just rewards you for being a long-term viewer. Now, really, the opening brawl was probably a good 5 or so minutes, and the ending segment was probably sort of 5 to 10 minutes. But we are just maximizing the use of our television time. We just do. We get to the crux of the matter really quickly, and throughout the night we have these little skits where you have the tricks, essentially, because Paul Heyman tells Solo Sikoa, oh, Cody Rhodes and friends have gone away. And he's like, well, that's good, man, because one, Jacob Fatu isn't here, Solo Sikoa was lying, and two, I want to acknowledge you as my wise man later. And then it flipped it on a dime and turned out that he didn't want him there at all. Now, I always presumed that when Paul Heyman got attacked is when Roman Reigns would come out to make the save. So this opens up the door for even more conversations. Now, I understand we're going crazy wazy here, so you have to forgive me, get mad in the comments, it's totally fine. But we do sort of have a 4-on-4 building up, right? The Bloodline has 4 people. Kevin Owens, Cody Rhodes, and Randy Orton, in case you're not good at maths, is 3 people. But could you put a Roman Reigns on their side? Are we actually going to reunite the Usos at a later date and do that first? Which really would be like the Avengers going to war. And can you imagine Roman Reigns standing behind those 3, or with those 3? That would be crazy. But then, is CM Punk going to have to get involved somehow when he's done with Drew? Some people have been saying Brock Lesnar's name. Now, that's a far more controversial situation. We'll do a specific video on that as and when he does come back, so I don't want this video to get derailed. I personally wouldn't, but hey-ho, you never know with wrestling. But I certainly like the idea of having the new Bloodline on one side, and then Roman Reigns, Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, and Kevin Owens on the other. And then when you need to kind of split all these people off, then you bring in Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso, and who knows who else. But the fact that there's so much depth to the roster that we can spin off in all of these directions is crazy. I mean, I could be making this up. I am an idiot. We all know this. I'm pretty sure when Cody Rhodes was doing his big speech after they had whooped the Bloodline's ass at the start of the show, when he mentioned the WWE title and, oh, we're in Madison Square Garden, I should be defending this, it kind of looked like Randy Orton was staring at it like, oh man, I want that gold. Because you're going to have to do Cody versus Randy at some point. The story is just too good. But we still have to get to Cody Rhodes versus The Rock. You'll get The Rock versus Roman Reigns. I did a video for What Culture again. Subscribe to them. Please subscribe to me too, where I kind of went all fantasy booking loser nerd man. And I was like, maybe we go totally crazy and you do Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania 41. And you also do CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes after Punk has won the Rumble. And at the Rumble, which of course WWE is obviously going to make into a 2-night event at some point because they're doing a SummerSlam. Maybe on that night, because it'll be the first pay-per-view premium live event on Netflix too. That's where you do The Rock versus Cody Rhodes. I don't know. If you want to go, Simon, that's madness, we shouldn't do that. I would totally understand. But the fact we can even have these conversations, and then there's Drew McIntyre, there's Damian Priest, there's just so many other people that are also hanging around playing Nintendo. So if you have a few minutes today, I would go out and watch this, even if it's just clips on social media. The fans turned a great segment into a brilliant one, and I just like the direction we're headed in, and I'm super duper excited about it, which is the same for Money in the Bank. Once again, all the qualifiers have been brilliant. We had Tiffany Stratton versus Candice LeRae versus Jade Cargill. That sort of surprised me. It didn't really surprise me, but it took me on a ride. This is what we talk about on AEW, WWE videos. When you can reintroduce a sense of jeopardy into your matches, it means eventually, boy who cried wolf goes the other way, and I sit there going, well, I don't know who's going to win this. Now, I kind of assumed Jade Cargill would be the favorite. I did assume that Tiffany would win. But at the end there, where we had the intervention from Nia Jax and Indy Hartwell, and it was just Candice and Tiffany in the ring, when Candice hit the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, surprise roll-up, I actually thought she was going to get the 3. That's how much WWE have now reconditioned me to go, well, I doubt it, but maybe. And it's that but maybe which is really important. Obviously, Tiffany stopped the finish, hit her PME, and got the 1, 2, 3, so she's going through. And we also put through Naomi, because she was taking on Blair Davenport and Indy Hartwell. Now, look, I don't like comparing things like this, because I still thought it was damn good, but maybe it wasn't as good as the other ones. But who even cares, man? I still had a good time. And Indy was there to take the pin, because of course Blair Davenport's only recently been called up, so we kind of kept them apart. But I like Naomi going through. We don't do enough with Naomi at all. But then back on the men's side, we had Logan Paul versus LA Knight versus Santos Escobar. And as over and as popular and as worthwhile as this was, I didn't think LA Knight was going to win. I thought Logan Paul was going to screw him over. Santos Escobar could have snuck in there too. We also had a bunch of NBA players in the crowd, which MSG loved. It was all just so well done. And the fact that, you know, essentially LA Knight had the match won with the BFT that hit on Santos Escobar. Then Logan Paul hits a surprise roll-up. And then LA Knight reverses it. Did kind of shock me because I'm so used, once again, I've been conditioned to know that if you hit your finish and someone else tries to pin you, you're going to lose. And I presume now Logan Paul can screw him at Money in the Bank, and that leads to Hot WrestleMania, aka SummerSlam, where LA Knight should absolutely become the United States champion. Again, I don't want to keep going on about this because it's boring. But much in the same way as Gunther was able to establish the Intercontinental title on Raw, that should be LA Knight's job on SmackDown, because he's still super over. Madison Square Garden went crazy for him. So just, again, all the Money in the Bank stuff has been so well done. I love the fact that everybody does have to qualify. Hands up, I got it totally wrong, because it was Carmelo Hayes about a month or so ago that said, I'm going to qualify. And I was like, man, what a loser. Nobody else has to qualify. I was totally incorrect. Although during the show, we did have Carmelo tell us he was going to win it, and we had Andrade tell us he was going to win it. So somebody is lying to me, and that hurts my feelings. Like, it really, really, truly does. And of course, with the women's one as well, Nia Jax was getting involved, and then Jade Cargill was getting involved later. So we're still teasing this buddy-buddy relationship between Nia and Tiffany Stratton. And as I've already said on one of my videos, I think these two are going to be the reason Bayley loses at SummerSlam. Tiffy time is going to help Nia 9 minutes, Jack seconds, doesn't work. And that's how Nia Jax has become the champion. I'm not actually that against it at all. I think that could be quite fun. I think you do want some big title changes on SummerSlam / Hot WrestleMania. So it was just a really, really good show. SmackDown, when you sort of tie it up from this week to last week, is on a massive roll right now. I'm truly excited to see what we're going to do, especially because Roman could come back at Money in the Bank. Now, it's a Canadian crowd, so they will go crazy. You know that. And WWE clearly is setting these thumbs up because Chicago, New York, make sure we get these big reactions. Because it's still, what, like 6 weeks to SummerSlam? Is Roman Reigns really going to see his tribal chief, not his tribal chief, his wise man, get whooped and take that time to come back? You could argue maybe that is too long and he loses some of that allure. Maybe he does come out at the end of Money in the Bank. I don't know. And that does sort of help you a lot with things you may want to do at SummerSlam, because if we are going to be doing Solo Sikoa versus Cody Rhodes, a big criticism, or a worry I should say, is that if Cody is leaving that match with his title, you don't want Roman Reigns to come out after that, because maybe that usurps Cody, or maybe it creates a difficult situation. Whereas if he comes back beforehand, then you can start planting seeds for wherever the hell you want to go. But it's just working, and it's just exciting, and it just goes to show that they have finally given the time that now the audience knows, okay, we are going to be patient, we are going to tell stories, we will pay them off. So even when sometimes you do watch a show, you're like, oh, that was okay, then in hindsight, you can go, well, we were just laying groundwork there. And now, as we are leading up to the pay-per-view, the premium live event, you get to the hot stuff and the stuff where you can start being pumped, like Paul Heyman being thrown through a table. Now, that sounds terrible, but wrestling is weird. Speaking of the Bloodline, though, it does kind of feel like we've snuck the Street Profits out of there, because they walked into Nick Aldich's office, and they were like, we want to take on the Bloodline, man. And Aldich basically went, no. When Pretty Deadly finally returned to TV and they wanted to put on Pretty Deadly the musical, Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford were so offended they just went, you know what, screw the Bloodline, we want to take on you instead. Now, of course, this is my favorite sort of wrestling storyline. It's absolutely ridiculous and it's absolutely dumb. But it did almost feel like those guys had come back just to create a distraction, because obviously Randy Orton and Kevin Owens, well, no, it's really Kevin Owens tagging with the Street Profits, so it's Cody and Randy that have taken over their roles. But that's okay, as long as they are being featured, and they are going to do a tag team match next week, as is, and hopefully this all ties in, DIY versus Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. Now, we did just change the Raw Championships on a TV show, And unless we're going to do a back-to-back thing and there's going to be some shenanigans, and then we do get to Money in the Bank, we do the title change there, I think Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa are probably going to win it. Now, listen, I love Austin Theory. I love Grayson Waller. WWE has clearly decided they want to break them up, so you may as well just do it. And the tag team titles on every level, Raw, SmackDown, and Women's, all need a bit of a kick up the tuchets at the moment. They have lost their direction, which makes me sad, because again, go back to WrestleMania 39, and they are on fire right now, but at least it is allowing us to include these people on TV. Like, if Vince McMahon was still in charge, Ciampa and Gargano would not have been used in this way. I still think they could go out there and have good singles runs, and I'm sure they will do at some point, but just the fact that you can be featured, even though you're not of Vince McMahon's stature, has been a huge plus to WWE. And we should probably mention as well, I don't think we've done a video since the news did come out, Sika Anoa'i passed away, who of course was one half of the Wild Samoans. An awesome tag team, right? They're so much fun. Go watch some of their matches. I mean, the clue is in the name. They are wild. But also Roman Reigns' dad. So, I mean, that doesn't make it any sad or anything, but it kind of ties it into the current generation. So there was a really, really nice and a really, really cool video on SmackDown. So yeah, as I haven't mentioned it here, just want to send out all the thoughts and feelings to the friends and family. Can't even imagine it. It's the worst thing in the world. There's nothing more difficult to have to deal with in life in grief, and the irony of that is quite frankly ridiculous. So I did just want to address it. That's all there really is to talk about when it comes to SmackDown. I think one of my favorite things about the Friday night show is it's very succinct. Like, we have segments, they sort of come and go, come and go, come and go. It's obviously built around the Bloodline, because that's one of WWE's major acts, and you get the big thing at the end, and because it's only 2 hours, it feels like such a breeze. Because obviously Raw, when you get to that third hour, can be a bit laborious at times, and I'd be happy to get rid of it, although the rumors now is that AEW and WBD are about to renew their TV deal. And again, it's all speculations, all murmurings. No one knows anything unless you're in the room. But apparently some of those sort of block tapings that AEW has been doing was to test the waters when it comes to a 3-hour Dynamite. Now listen, I want AEW to make all the money in the world. I hope they're around forever. I hope they continue to grow and, like I say, increase revenues and gross profit and pay the wrestlers even more money, whatever it could be. I don't think a 3-hour Dynamite is a good idea, just because I feel like if I compare it to SmackDown, if it's never going to happen, but if somehow they didn't care about money anymore and WWE did take Raw back down to 2 hours, it would be an incredible show. I mean, it's pretty good as it is. They're really quite good at elongating it out, but then I get to Fridays and I watch SmackDown. It always reminds me that 2 hours is just the perfect running time for a wrestling show. It's kind of the same with a movie as well. Like, there are a few 3-hour movies that I look at and go, well, fantastic, that's 3 hours. Because in this life, what do we do that's 3 hours? Or what do you do that's 3 hours that asks you to tune in every single week? And if you're a nerd like me, all of a sudden you're asked to do that on a Monday and you're asked to do that on a Wednesday. I think it's quite the request. I mean, look, AEW and WWE shouldn't have to worry about that. They're separate entities. But we as fans, of course, are going to approach it that way. But we'll wait and see. And I think sometimes it's about the greater good, and having AEW around is just the greater good. So if that's what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. It's going to make ups and downs. Very interesting. Although the plus side is maybe it can get more people onto AEW TV. I don't know, but as it did come out as I was talking about it, I thought I would mention it. And otherwise, there's not really else much to talk about at the moment because we've hit all the big things. Other than Roman Reigns coming back soon. I mean, how cool is this, right? Back in 2016, WWE were getting it completely wrong, and they couldn't even get Roman Reigns' own, I don't know, family to cheer him. Whereas here we are, say 8 years later, and he's not even on TV, and he's the biggest babyface in the company, apart from maybe Cody Rhodes. I think it's wonderful, and it goes to show sometimes you just have to let the wrestlers book themselves. Roman knew the Tribal Chief was a good idea at the head of the table, and he's totally smashed it. But, right, if you've seen SmackDown, get in those comments below. Let me know what you think about it. For more daft review, go over to What Culture. You can see my ups and downs. Hit the notification bell, subscribe, like the video, share the video, do all of those things. Otherwise, if you want some fitness supplements, go to grillermind.com/Simon. You can go to Simon, get 10% off. Again, I vouch for these. I think they are great. Otherwise, it is patreon.com/Simon316. Simon316 on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. Simon J. Miller on TikTok. That's where all my dumb wrestling videos are going now, if you want to tune in. Simon Miller on Cameo for personalized videos. They're always fun. They've got some new 3-day thing now. You can check it out if you want. T-shirts on Pro Wrestling Tees and Samson Athletics. I do believe that's everything. But thank you for stopping by, my friends. Check out my other videos. If you are a bit bored today, we can hang out. Be good to see you, and I will see you soon.